I'm Myles Bowen. I attend St. Thomas Academy. I'm in 8th grade, and I'm going to be performing Malcolm X. My thesis statement and title is A Man Who Through His Faith Changed Lives. I'm pretty sure you're wondering why Malcolm X. Well, I'm going to tell you why. He was a man who through his faith changed lives, starting with his own. And when he changed lives, he used his faith to combat racism. The 60s were a very troubled time in our past. You had social unrest in every avenue, race and gender inequality. There was economic empowerment, and not to mention the international community at the throes of war. But Malcolm X was a leader who was helping the marginalized to realize that they can achieve social equality by any means necessary. Good evening. I am Brother El Haj Malik El Shabazz. I'm here to talk to you about the most important subject, you, the black man in America. The black man in America is the equivalent to a gazelle in the lion's den. That's how we black men feel here. We are abused, mistreated, raped, economically, physically, and emotionally. Do we have any power in our lives? No, because the white man has stripped us of our own human rights, our own free will, our hair, our speech, our bodies, even our names. See, the white man asks us, "What's your name, nigga?" And we might say Benton Jefferson, Malcolm Little. They laugh at us. They're laughing at our ignorance because we don't know that the white man has used their names and given our last names to the slave. And we're still using those names today. The white man has oppressed us Negroes for over 300 years, but we still don't see the wrong they have done us. We still crave their white women. We still strive to look like the white man. Now who taught you to hate yourselves? You say TV, he says his wife, but the real man is the white man that we work for. The white man that we go out to see in the movies. The white man who comes in the middle of the night with bed sheets on their heads to burn down our houses. Now who taught you to hate yourselves? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches that a white man hates when a black man does for himself. We need to listen here. We need to strike the white nose back before they destroy us. Aren't you tired of seeing the violence done to our people? You have to be, because I was tired a long time ago. You see, I wasn't always like this. Before I was born, my mother, Louise Little, was pregnant with me. The Ku Klux Klan rode to our house in Omaha, Nebraska. They demanded for my father to come out. And my mother told him of his whereabouts. He was at a Garvey convention and he was not yet back. Garvey was a man who made a political group, the Universal Negro Improvement Association. And this was a group that encouraged African people of African descent to redeem Africa and the white colonists to leave. But my father was gone, and the only reason they spared my mother's life and my 3 siblings were because she had light skin. But they did break out every window in our cabin before they left. I soon learned that this was a common occurrence for most Negroes at this time, but especially for my father and my family because of his affiliation with Marcus Garvey's political groups. My father often brought me to these groups and meetings. I grew up on Garvey conversations and speeches like some children grew up on milk. I always thought my father favored me because of who I was. But he favored me because of my complexion, how I had sandy brown hair, freckles, and light brown skin. I kind of resembled the white man, but for that same exact reason, my mother treated me much harsher. She had given me this light brown skin, and her white rapist father had given her her white skin. This is just another way I saw myself through my family's eyes. I remember one night in Lansing, Michigan, we had to move many times because the white supremacist groups ran my father out. And that night we woke up and my mother was crying and screaming hysterically. 2 men in black suits were telling her that our father had been found in another city, split in 2 on train tracks with his head smashed in. And when my mother finally got the courage to ask the insurance company for the life insurance money, they said that he had committed suicide. And she tried to reason with them. She told them, how can a man smash his head in and then put himself on train tracks? It was definitely murder, but they refused. So we became so poor that I was eating grass out of the yard with my family. The social services took me away and put me into correctional boarding school. And that is where I became the smartest in my class, even though I was the only Negro there. So one day the teacher asked me, "What do you want to be when you grow up, Malcolm?" And I said, a lawyer. And he told me, "You's a nigger, Malcolm. You get you one of them good nigger jobs like a janitor or something." And that was the first time I ever realized, no matter how light my skin was, I was a nigger to the white man. A nigger job is exactly what I got when I grew up. It was a good one, but nonetheless, it barely paid me anything. I was a waiter on a train. I lived in Detroit. I got the nickname Detroit Red. I had the zoot suits. I had a conch. I tried to look as white as possible. I had my man Shorty on one side and then my girl B. B was a rich white girl. And the law back then was that a nigger couldn't kick it with a white girl. But B didn't care, neither did I. Any black man with a white girl was at the top of his game. We were gambling. We were using drugs. Once gambling was out the picture, we started robbing people. And when the police finally caught up to us, Shorty and I were sentenced to 10 years in prison, 10 sentences of 10 years in prison to serve concurrently. No, it wasn't because we were robbing. It was because we had slept with a white woman many times. My prison number was 22843. That's what you were supposed to say when the white guards asked you what your name was. I always said Malcolm because isn't that who I was? Wasn't I the boy who watched my father and my family deteriorate? They didn't care. They would beat me until I said my number. So one day, a fellow older prisoner came to me. His name was Bimby, and he told me about the religion of Islam. And I listened here. That's very important. He told me to fully adopt this religion, I would have to get down and pray 5 times facing the holy city of Mecca. So one night when I was reading in my cell, Elijah Muhammad came to me, and he told me to rise and save my race. And that was the first time I ever got down on my knees, faced the holy city of Mecca, and prayed. The only reason I survived prison was because of Allah's grace. Once I left prison, I started speaking out in the Negro communities. I joined the Islamic group, the Nation of Islam. There I learned a lot more about my religion. I became very famous in Negro communities, and I introduced to them the Nation of Islam. Because many people were skeptical because it was a foreign religion in America. And when I told them about it, they didn't believe me. But as I kept speaking out against the white man, and I kept telling them how we could rebel and use our forces against them because we had been oppressed for so long, many people joined. But I was not the only Negro speaking out for Negro equality. You see, there's Medgar Evers, Julian Bond, Claudette Colvin, T.R.M. Howard. But there was one man I respected with awe. It was Martin Luther King Jr. Even though we didn't see eye to eye, I still respected him because he taught peace, non-aggression to get our rights and earn them. But I couldn't believe in that because the white man had beat us up for so long that we have the right to defend ourselves by any means necessary, by all costs, by any means necessary with force. My ministry became so famous that Elijah Muhammad himself required me to come meet him. And that was the first time I ever laid eyes on such a holy man. He was so knowledgeable about my religion, everything I believed in. I soon only referred to him and Allah for guidance about my ministering. As my infamy grew, as my fame grew, my infamy grew. But not only with white America, with Negroes, even with people, my Muslim brothers. A lot of them said I was committing heresy, telling lies about the Nation of Islam. They said they were jealous of my power. They said I was using it, abusing it to get my own self-gratification. But I wasn't. It was very hard to get through that. My wife and my 3 daughters, we soon became threatened. We had to be under always surveillance. And it soon became dysfunctional like my childhood. I never knew my adult life would be like this. A Hajj is a holy pilgrimage to the holy city of Mecca. Every Muslim is required to go on one. I took my Hajj at the beginning of the threats, Because I need to reconnect with Allah, find why I was there and what I was ministering about. Once I got to Saudi Arabia, I'm convinced the Arabians that I was a Muslim, and I finally got to the holy city of Mecca. I saw white men praying with Negroes, people with red skin colors sitting and eating with Negroes, and that was the first time I had ever seen this. I realized that Allah didn't see a man's race. He didn't see someone's color. He didn't see someone's money. He didn't see how much you knew. He only saw your heart, and that's all he worried about. And that's when I had my epiphany. When I came back to the Americas, I came back a changed man. The white man was no longer the devil. He had only been taught to do this, just how Negroes were taught to hate the white man. I had to tell my brothers and my followers about this. My brothers and sisters, I come before you today to admit that I was wrong. I was so very wrong. You see, I have been taught wrong. Allah doesn't see a man's race, his color, how much he makes, how much he knows. He only sees a man's heart, and that's all he worries about. That's what you need to focus. I kept spreading my message of love. And as I did that, many people, as in my Muslim brothers, turned against me. Elijah Muhammad himself said I was a liar. And that hurt because I had looked up to this man. He was the father of everything I believed in. And for him to tell me that I was dishonest and I was lying about the religion, and there was no way of getting back, guys. But I knew that I had to preach the message of love that Allah had put me to do. Now, I told more people. And a lot of my followers changed their minds about the white man. Even my enemies. I influenced so much with that change. But my enemies started to look more like me. Many more of my Islam brothers turned against me, sending threats to my family. I removed myself from the Nation of Islam after I saw this. And I knew that my life was not going to be lived much longer, and it was going to be ended by violence. February 21st, 1965, was Malcolm X's last speech. He was still spreading his message about love. Many of his followers were changing, and his wife were in the audience. And that's when 3 men came and gunned him down. He died that day in his wife's arms. Even though Malcolm was a product of violence, and he died by violence, he found forgiveness and peace through his teachings. And as he changed his life through his faith by finding Allah and going back to Mecca and seeing how the white man and the black man were not meant to fight, he could see past color. And a lot of his followers did the same, and his enemies. And who knows what he would have done as a real person if he had been able to live longer, what he could have influenced in the civil rights movement. We will never know. But he was a great man, and he's done so much for this country. Thank you.